if you're not familiar, if you don't know, the Marine Corps falls under the Department of the Navy. So they use Navy corpsmen and Navy religious personnel to serve with the Marines. And so I was in corpsman school, training school when 9/11 happened. And so they automatically sent all the guys, all the males in my class and the next couple classes all to the Marines. So whatever contract you had, it was all canceled, and they just sent all the guys to the Marines. And that's when I met Noah at 3-2 in Camp Lejeune. And then I checked in there, and then I don't know, maybe 8 months later, we deployed. And
Jesus.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
that's I mean, just the way you're telling me, I'm super overwhelmed. So I mean, like, I can't even imagine what that was like.
yeah, it was a culture shock for sure. And so after deployment, I wanted to, not that I want to do something better, but I wanted to kind of test myself and work with, more like-minded guys and a community. And I loved medicine. I loved being a corpsman. So really the only thing that kind of fell within that special operations community was Navy diver. So I went to Navy dive school, and I graduated as a diving medical technician. So I have a diving specialty, and then I also have the corpsman, land, marine, stuff as well. So that kept me within the special operations communities with the SEALs, with EOD, explosive ordnance disposal, and Navy diver. And so I could do medicine, I could dive, and I could work with all of those groups. And so that's where the whole SEAL stuff came. And I went to SEALs, I went to Dev Group, or SEAL Team 6. I was there for, 7-8 years, deployed with them a bunch. I was a BUDS instructor, SEAL instructor after that, and taught second phase, which is diving. And so I taught diving and diving medicine. And then I was also the corpsman for the class for all their physical training evolutions as well. So,
wow.
Yeah.
What was the training like for that, man? Like for SEALs and all that, especially like diving, like was the training super intense?
Yeah. So dive school was 6 months. Navy dive school was 6 months at the time. I think it's a little shorter now, but it was 6 months at the time. And so I did 4 months of of diving, learning how to dive, the hard helmet, scuba, like all of that. And then the non-corpsman rates or non-corpsman job guys went on to graduate. And then we stayed for another 3 months for diving medicine specific. So learning more about, embolisms and decompression sickness and all the injuries and things that can happen with diving. And so, so graduated from that, and then, had that, and then went to EOD right after that, and went back to Panama City School, went to explosives training school. So did explosives, learned some more diving rigs and apparatus. Didn't deploy with EOD. And then, so I spent 3 years there. And then I got a call from SEAL Team 6 from a guy there that said that they had a recommendation that I should come try out. So they give me a call, and they were like, hey, I think this is Mark. That's what he said. Hey, this is Mark. I'm at Naval Special Warfare Development Group, and we got a recommendation that you might want to come try out. And I was like, yes, absolutely. And
That's
so,
cool.
So that was like on a Monday or a Tuesday, and I had a ticket and orders and everything by Thursday. And I flew from San Diego to Virginia Beach, and then spent the following week, that Monday through Friday, kind of like trying out and going through interviews and all kinds of stuff like that. And then once I screened positive and I passed everything, and I got all the thumbs up from everybody there, it was pretty much hitting the ground running and training. And so I went to jump school, went to free fall school, went to driving, like a offensive and defensive driving school, went to 4-wheel drive school, went to,
my God.
So they're really preparing you.
Yeah. So everything that the SEALs did, I had to go do all the training and stuff for as well, to be able to serve and, deploy and go with them. So whether it was a diving thing, a mission, or a jumping mission or anything like that, I had to have all the qualifications that they did. So really, I kind of got to have my cake and eat it too, without having to go to buds, without having to, go through SEAL training.
Yeah.
So I kind of got it all really, without having to do all that. But, not to say that Navy dive school isn't tough. There's a pretty good dropout rate there as well. But yeah, it was good. I really enjoyed it, and wouldn't have traded it for anything. So.
And so like I'm very curious about like military, because I think for us, like civilians, for John and I don't know really what it's like a deployment, right? And you always hear about PTSD, some of the experiences and what you've seen before.
Mm-hmm.
Like, were the deployments really bad? I shouldn't say bad, but like, were they just like such a unique experience that it just cannot leave you?
Oh yeah, for sure, absolutely. There's there's definitely things that, for, I don't know, lack of being PC or having some couth, like there are things that happen to human beings that you just never thought could happen in combat. Like you just never see or think that, humans could look the way they do after,
Right.
Going through the things that we were going through. And so, and as a medic, as a corpsman, that was really tough for me too, because, I don't have a medical background at all before I came in. I came in really late. I came in, I was like 26, but I didn't have a medical background. I was a little bit more mature, obviously, but, that was all new to me too, same as Noah and all these other 18 and 19 and 20-year-olds as well. And so, but I think the maturity that I had, I think helped me a little bit more, being able to see that kind of stuff and be able to kind of keep my composure a little bit. Just because I'd been around the block, a little bit more than everybody else had, So, so not that it came easy, but I think it was easier for me to kind of accept and deal with, at that time. And then really that was the toughest. The first deployment was the toughest. That was the hardest to really, I wouldn't say overcome, but kind of deal with, and, still have, issues and sometimes have these, deep, lows. And, but really after that, it was like, you learn to kind of file it away or put it away, or
Compartmentalize kind of thing.
Yeah, compartmentalize it. And, which isn't always the best thing, but it's the best thing at the time. When you come home, you gotta be able to put it away and not worry about it for a little while, while you're with family and that kind of stuff. And then, you go back to work, and then it's like, all right, let's flip the switch again and time to do work. So,
right.
Yeah. So
now, your first deployment, was that Afghanistan?
No, it was Iraq with Noah.
With Noah, right. Yep.
Yeah. With the Marines. That was the first one. So,
and when was your last one? I'm sorry.
My last one was in 2012.
Okay, so that's a long time.
2003 to 2012, I had 5 deployments.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Like at a certain point there, like on deployment number 4 or 5, are you just like, are you at like your wit's end with it? Kind of like you're just exhausted. You know what I mean? Like you're just looking forward to like doing your time now and kind of moving on with your life.
Yeah, that's a good question. And you would think that, but I liked deploying. I enjoyed it. And I think it was because I had this camaraderie with these guys. These guys looked up to me being a medic, that if things were going to go south, and they trusted me to take care of them. And so I liked having that responsibility. I liked having that being dependent on. And they were also some of my best friends, and, I know that they would, lay their lives down for me as I would them. And, we were all there for the same kind of reason. We were all there to defend our country and help defend our families and friends in America. And so, we had this like bond, we had this bond and this camaraderie and thing. And so, I got to do a job that I loved doing with people that I loved being with. And so, it's weird. It's a very, I don't know. I would think it's kind of hard to understand, but
It sounds
seems like a brotherhood, right? Like it strikes me as a brotherhood. Like,
and it's like it's a life that's your adult life up until that point, you know. So like that's normal almost to you. Is that am I accurate in saying that?
Absolutely, yeah. Because you know, I was living that for the first, you know, from the first deployment through 2012. I was, you know, I was active duty the whole time, but you know, I was on active deployment duty, and so. Yeah, I just I enjoyed it, and there was that brotherhood, there was that bond, there was, you know, we had gone through training together, we had gone through all these other really tough experiences together, and now we're going overseas to deploy together as well, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was good because you know when you come home, it's like okay, you gotta do the family thing, which there's nothing wrong with, but it's you know taking care of bills, taking care of the kids, taking care of you know, now
kind of
my wife at the time wants a break, you know, because she's been doing all this stuff while I was gone.
Right.
So now I'm having to come home and do all the house stuff while she goes on a little bit of a break and can kind of decompress a little bit too. So it's almost like it just doesn't end. You're always in kind of a go mode, you know, and you're just always kind of flipping that switch between deployment and being back home and, you know, back and forth. And so, yeah.
Man, we're getting in some great conversation, John.
We are, and
just
full disclosure, man. I hit record like 10 minutes ago, so
okay, cool.
Like, we're just rolling here. Like we can, we'll stick to what we have on an outline for the most part, but a lot of times when we get in a good conversation like this, we kind of just go with it. So you know, just feel free to kind of roll with the punches. We're gonna do the same thing. If you got questions for us, fire away. But yeah, this is great.
Awesome.
Yeah, and what we'll do too is we'll record like a pre-recording. So like we'll run down like who you are. Like we'll do it separately. So we'll just like jump right in. But this is some great stuff. I'm telling you.
Yeah, and that pretty much covered our first part of the outline there. Which is we just kind of got there.
No, I didn't know if I should elaborate on a lot of that or just kind of like a little
perfect,
bit.
man.
Feel free, man. Yeah, feel free. Feel free.
That's all great. BG, do you want to just pick it up from there then?
You know, I was gonna say because you know, Chris, you're talking about your deployments, and struggling coming back to civilian life, and you've been very transparent about the struggling and adjusting coming back home. How common is it for veterans to struggle from being deployed to coming back home? And I guess like what were you struggling with in particular? Like I know you were talking about depression, but can you kind of describe what you were going through?
Yeah. So towards the end of my career, you know, I was going through divorce, a very unexpected divorce. My wife at the time left me, took our son, and just very unexpectedly. And so around that same time, my parents, after 48 years, were splitting up as well. And so I had those two things going on. And I coped with it by drinking. I started drinking a lot and using alcohol to cope with it. And so along with that, I found out, you know, fortunately or unfortunately, I could perform pretty well on alcohol. And so I would go out after work, I'd have dinner, I'd have some drinks, and then drinks would turn into more drinks. And then I'd come home, get a few hours of sleep, and then I could get up at 6 and go run and work out and PT and do all that. And, you know, hindsight being 2020, it was kind of scary, you know, it's scary having, you know, being able to do that. And so, so I ended up getting a DUI, and I really didn't think anything more than I would get my rank. I'd get busted down in rank. Well, I ended up getting kicked out after 17 years and some change. And so pretty close to retirement. I ended up getting kicked out and really wasn't expecting it. And so I had no real backup plan. I had really not any money saved because I had just gone through this divorce, and I had lost kind of my identity. I lost my self-worth. I lost all of these things going from, you know, being this corpsman, you know, who had, you know, a really, really great career. You know, I was, you know, Sailor of the Quarter, and I got these awards and medals and so on and so forth. And so I went from, you know, being dependent upon and having, you know, guys' lives in their hands, and my son playing with my friends' sons and families together and having cookouts and all these things, to really nothing, and going from 100 miles an hour to getting kicked out, and now I'm sitting at home like not having a clue what to do. And so again, it just it was unexpected, and I had nothing to fall back on. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't have a degree at the time. And so I just sulked a lot and was like, man, if I only did this, if I did that, I can't believe it. I hate the Navy. I hate everybody. I hate the military. I was really disgruntled with the military for a long time, because I thought I was important to them. I thought that I had gone through all this training and did all of these things, and I thought that I was important. And then I learned the hard way that, I was a number. And so I had a really tough time dealing with that for a long time. And, after the DUI is really when I kind of got into a depression. I had some suicidal ideation, and was in therapy for a long time before I even got out, and before I was even kicked out. And then after I got out, it got worse, obviously. And so I fell into a deeper depression, more suicidal ideation, and really just, I stayed at home. I didn't want to be around people. I didn't want to go anywhere. All the things that I love to do, I just had no desire to go do anymore. And so I struggled with that for a long, long time.
How many years would you say? Yeah, how many years would you say you were going through that?
Honestly, I would say I'm still kind of going through it.
Okay.
But I have better ways to cope with it. I have ways to deal with it, and I know when I'm starting to feel that way and what I need to do. And it's really just trying to motivate myself to be like, okay, you know what? I'm really not feeling very well right now. I'm going through some stuff, tough week, tough whatever. And, things are just compounding. And so it's like, okay, I gotta cut this off now and go do some stuff. And ice baths are one of them. And so,
that was the next question, right? So first off, I guess, what are some of those things that you use to help you? And then on the back end of that, or maybe even the front end of it, how did you discover them?
Yeah. So I've been a trail runner, ultra runner for a long time. So I started out doing triathlons for a while, and then it just got to be super expensive. And so then I got into trail running and ultra running for, since 2012, 13, I think. And so trail running was a big thing. It was a big one for me, where I could go into the woods. I could just let everything go, let the worries go, and just go run and think about what I want to do, how I want to do it, and let go of the things that I don't want or don't want to deal with, and that sort of thing. And so trail running and ultra running was really, really big for me to kind of get some relief, I guess, from that. And so and even that was tough, when I was going through these lows, I didn't even want to go do that. And that's something I do almost every day. And I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to go anywhere. I didn't want to, I didn't even want to do the things that I knew would help me, because it took effort, and I didn't want to, you know what I mean? So, yeah.
How did you do that? Because, we've had a gentleman on our podcast has bipolar and depression as well. And he said similar things, where he knows he needs to go work out, but it's so hard, you don't have energy. Yeah. Is there something that you lean on, whether it be a message you're telling yourself or something, to really flip that switch or change that state to get you to trail run or ice baths or anything?
Yeah. Again, I think it's just being aware and recognizing it, and going to do it before I can think about it or think that I don't want to go do it. So it's like, let me just grab my shoes. I don't want to think about it, and I won't even put them on. I'll just take them in the car with me, and I'll just go. So really, it's just trying to get out the door before I'm like, oh, you know what, I'll go in an hour, or I'll go in 2 hours, or I'll go a little bit later, or I'll, and I just procrastinate. And I know what I'm doing. I know that I'm not going to go, but I'm telling myself I'm going to go just so that I don't have to right now. And I just put it off. And so then the ice bath thing came about kind of the same way. I had been out for about a year. And the first year out was probably the hardest. First year and a half was the hardest for sure. And I had moved to Asheville, North Carolina, and I was really in a bad place for a long time. And I told myself that I needed to figure out something to do or else I was going to check out. Like I was done. And I was tired of dealing with it. I was tired of like really just feeling like I was just barely keeping my head above water. And so I had learned about Wim Hof when I was at Dev Group, and they brought a guy who worked, for Wim Hof to come teach, about ice baths and cold immersion and things like that. And I had heard about it, so I was a little familiar with it then. And so I felt like I had tried everything up to that point. And so I was like, let me try this ice bath thing that I've heard so much about. I've heard of these people like, give it praise and all these things. And so I jumped online, and I remember this was like a Monday, and I jumped online, and there was a Wim Hof course that Friday. And I'm not a guy who like looks for signs or that the universe is giving me things and that kind of thing at all. But I felt like this is just weird. I gotta try it out. And so I signed up for it. I paid for it. And then afterwards I realized that it was like a level 3, ice bath training or whatever, a 3-day course or whatever. And so I was like, oh shit. I called the guy up and I was like, hey, I just paid for this. I'm not sure if I'm qualified to do it. I've done some ice bath stuff, but not in that sense, but through the military and forced in, not really voluntarily getting in and that sort of thing. And so I was like, is this something I can do, or do I need to go back and go through the first one? And he was like, you know what, come on out. We'll go through it. If I feel like, it's a little bit too much, then I'll refund you and we'll take care of it. And I'll get you into the first course and so on. So I was like, perfect.
Cool. Yeah.
So first day I got there, we talked and, went through all the training that first day. And he was like, dude, you're solid. You're fine. And so he was like, good to go. No problem. So finished up the course. We did our first ice bath on that Saturday. And then we did another one where we had to hike into the woods. And at the time it was in the winter, we had snow in Asheville, and we hiked through the woods for, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 miles. And we got to this big waterfall, and he was like, all right, we're going to hop in. We're going to do all of our breathing, all this meditation that we had learned for the 2 days prior. And we're going to jump in. And so we did it, and we jumped in, and there was probably, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 other guys in the course with me, and we all jumped in, and we all just kind of like did our thing. We all kind of meditated and really just kind of got energy from each other. And
right.
Ended up, I think the majority of us were in there for about 10 minutes. And
wow.
Yeah, again, it was probably in the 20s outside. We're, there's snow on the ground, and then we were in a waterfall in the middle of the woods. And
that's
so,
great. And for those of you guys who are listening who don't know this, moving water is much colder than still water. So if you get into a tub of water, like the ice baths you see online a lot of times, that water is not moving. If you go into a river, or in this case a waterfall, and that water's moving, there's like a little thin layer between the water and your skin when you're in still water that will almost act as a barrier. In moving water, that is not there. And so you are exposed more, as weird as it may sound, which causes it to be way colder feeling. So I couldn't even imagine that, man. Like that's crazy. I've done a few. We have a little stream that kind of runs through a trail over by my house here. And so last winter I'd be going for some trail runs, and then I'd finish a trail run and I go right into the water. And it was way different than doing the tub at home. It was great. That's something about being outside doing that though. It's different, like a good different,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I feel like you're a part of nature, maybe more in a weird way, you know?
For sure.
So we did that, and I got done that day, and I was like, holy shit, I feel completely different, like a different person. I don't know what it is about that, but I really
And what about the meditation, Chris? I'm sorry, because
Yeah.
you mentioned the meditation piece of it. Was that to help control your thoughts? So it's like, okay, we're going to focus on meditation because you control your thoughts don't control you. So that's like really a big piece of the training too.
Yeah, I think the breathing is the
Mhm.
bigger piece.
Mhm.
It's the breathing and really, listening and feeling your breath and concentrating on your breath so that you don't have any of these outside thoughts, and whether you need to count, whether you need to just listen and feel it and think about it and listen to it and, all of these things, more so than trying to block out thoughts. I think
Yep.
just by listening to your own breathing, listening to your breath, listening to how you are reacting to it and dealing with it, I think tends to keep the thoughts out. And so that's really, I think, where that lies. And I think a lot of people don't get that. I think they just see people getting into ice baths and getting into rivers and all these things. They just want to jump in, and that's so much harder. It's so much harder to do that. Whereas if you just take 2-3 minutes to just breathe and just kind of clear your mind and just breathe and listen to it and do it, and then you get in, it's easier.
Yeah. Because
in a way.
you have to control your breathing when you're in there too. So if you're going in there raw, essentially, without getting your breath work in prior to, you're going to panic breathe when you get into the water, and it's going to cause issues if you're in there. It could be dangerous. It could potentially be very dangerous for you.
Yeah.
So, how was that, learning curve for you with the breath work? Like, do you utilize that method outside of ice baths? Like, do you do breathing practices and stuff like that? When you're not doing your ice baths and stuff like that too.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, when I'm feeling stressed, I'll do it more. But this year I've made it, I don't really do resolutions, but this year I've made it a point to meditate more. So I've started out doing 3 minutes in the morning and 3 minutes at night before I go to bed. And then, I'll gradually increase as I go. But, it's just really to kind of relax and just to kind of let, these negative thoughts or thoughts about the day or, things that I'm kind of like picking on myself about, like, I should have did this earlier, or, whatever it was that I was doing earlier that I did differently, or that I didn't enjoy, or I didn't like doing, or I didn't like the outcome. It's kind of just like, okay, you know what, the day's over. I need to stop, reflecting on that and just let it go. And now I know, and then just do better tomorrow. Or if this comes up again, I know now what I need to do and how to overcome that and deal with it. And so,
that's great.
So I've really tried to just do breathing, and sometimes I'll do a pattern of breathing, and sometimes it's just, a few seconds in and, 6 or 8 seconds out. And usually the exhales is longer than the inhale. And so, we'll just do some breathing, just breathe.
Yeah. It's so interesting because it sounds so simple. Like when you tell someone to breathe, right? Like if someone's upset, you just breathe, but if you're methodically breathing, it's very different. And there's a lot of different benefits to it that people maybe not realize because they think it's so simple that there is no benefits, but it's a real thing. The breathing exercises are a very real thing.
Yeah, it's wild. And, just to add on to that, I didn't think there was more to it than just breathing, until I did the Wim Hof thing. And it was like, all right, we're going to just slow your breathing down and just, you don't really need to concentrate on anything. Just concentrate on your breath.
Yeah.
And, and that's what we did. And so now, from that, I've learned other techniques and other, counts and holds and breath holds and things like that you can incorporate into them that help, relaxation. And sometimes I don't have a rhyme or reason why I do one or the other. It's just, hey, I'm going to try this one out tonight. I just feel like I'm going to do this one instead of this other one that I've been doing,
Right.
And so,
I have to ask this because I am a novice. I will turn the shower cold and I will last about 10 seconds and I'll turn that motherfucker right off.
Right.
I have to understand from both of you who both cold plunge. What does it feel like after you plunge? Can you help me understand like not only the mental benefit, but maybe like the body feeling, so that hey, I'm not a cold plunging guy, but what
So
does it feel like?
I'll tell you this because I know you well, and I'll explain it to you this way that I know you'll understand. It's like a really, really good pre-workout without the jitters. Like the
Speaking of my
focus,
heart.
right? Exactly. I know I'm trying to appeal to you because I want you to fucking do it, but you just won't. But it's a level, and Chris, dive in here at any point, right?
Yeah.
It's a level of focus and awareness that you did not have prior to. And that's why I like doing it at night, because you and I do our stuff at night. So I like being focused and sharp for it. But I sleep so good because I do it. Like there's other small benefits outside of it, but it's a different level of like heightened focus and awareness that you have from it. It's like it completely sharpens your mentals in a different way than any coffee, energy drink, whatever you possibly could have do.
Yeah.
Chris, what did I miss, man? I know
I think it's, for me, it clears that brain fog that like, you have all these things in your head and they're just kind of moving around. Like maybe I do mine in the morning. I like to do mine in the morning.
Yeah.
So in the morning when I get up, I'm like, okay, I got all this shit to do today. And it's like, okay, what do I want to do first? And, I have all that stuff going on in my head, And so for me, when I get in, it kind of clears it. And it just, again, makes me more focused, makes me more calm, makes me able to concentrate a little bit more. And I feel like I have tons of energy for the rest of the day.
Yes.
And I don't know if it's because my body is constantly trying to rewarm itself through the entire day, that it's just, it's just producing this dopamine and producing this heat and, all these feel good things. And it just keeps me going. It's usually for a good couple hours for me. And that's all I need really is, a couple hours throughout the morning and early afternoon. And really that's the most important part of my day, to get stuff done and do things and, whatever it might be. And so, I think, John, you're spot on, man.
It's funny too, because to kind of explain it to people who don't understand it the best, it's you get in the cold water and your mind you'll only focus on how cold the water is, and your body kind of goes into a survival mode.
Yeah.
And so to be able to use those breathing techniques, like you're saying, Chris, and to be able to calm your mind in the moment where your body's at its most stressed state, there's a training level to that with your mind. Then when you encounter things in your day or you encounter things in your life that are stressful, you've essentially been through a training, if you will, through the ice baths, that you can, if your mind is able to handle the stresses your body's putting under it intentionally in cold immersion, you can handle those other stressors in your life with a little bit more ease.
Right. Yeah. I think just building a little bit of that right there,
Exactly. There's resilience. That's right. For
yeah.
Sure.
And so, again, spot on, man. And I think, again, I think that sense of accomplishment of doing it is also adds to it too, where it's like, you have this, these other stresses in your life and you're like, you know what, man, I just spent a minute in this ice cold water that's, 10 degrees, there's ice in it and, whatever. And I overcame that and I accomplished it. And so now I'm going to go into my day even more confident and more resilient and not having to worry about whatever stressors come my way, because I just did a fucking ice bath, when it's 10 degrees outside and the water's 5 degrees, or vice versa even. And, and I did it. And so I think there's just that level of confidence as well that carries you through the day and through the next, your days.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point.
I love that. I will try it eventually. I promise that. You're selling me on it, so I appreciate that. Now,
and, and I was gonna say also, I think the cold showers, like we were talking earlier about the water moving around you. I hate cold showers.
Me too, man.
I think they're harder than getting an ice bath.
100%.
For that reason, is that it's just moving over you and just it's pulling that body heat away.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you're just freezing cold. And I fucking hate that. I can't say that.
Yeah. So you gotta do it like
it's harder for me to go do a cold shower in the morning than it is to get in the ice
yes,
tub.
I could see that. I could see that. You got to start like at 50 degrees, like 55 degrees, like that'll feel really cold to you.
Yeah.
But then like you just got to work your way down. Like so you use a tub outside, right, Chris?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have the same one, like that Rubbermaid stock tank, right?
Yep.
That's what I use. And so like it progressively gets colder as the weather gets colder. So like your body can like acclimate a little bit. So like right now I'm peaking. Like I just had to break through ice to sit in there for a few minutes. I'm good now. But like if it's October, I'll get into it when it's 40 degrees after it's been only like 50 all summer, and I feel like I'm freezing in there. Yeah. So like your body has to acclimate. So your body loses it once you stop doing it at such cold temperatures too. So it's a whole game, man. People who like cold immersion they love talking about it too, as you can see. So
So Chris, going through this, is this where doors started to open, where almost you changed your mindset and were like, okay, this is amazing, I'm open to new experiences?
Yeah. With the ice bath thing, you mean? Yeah. So, I think, so I started out doing, the cold shower after that. I hadn't invested in a tub yet, but I was like, I got to get one of those tubs. And, so I looked around for like old freezers. I was going to try the old freezer and, some other things. And so, the guy that I did the course with, he had like 3 of those Rubbermaid ones. And so I was just like, hey man, where do you get those from? And he was like, $90, $100 at, Tractor Supply or something like that. So I was like, what? Done. Yeah. So I went down there, I threw it in my car and came home, and man, I went to the store on my way and I was like, I can't wait. Like, all right, here we go, and I filled it up and threw the ice in there and it was like, yes, jumped in and I was like, shit, this sucks. And
I was excited
going back to it again. Yeah. Going back to it again. But then, it's just, constantly going back and keep it going and keep it going and keep going. And I almost find it better, maybe better for me if I don't do it every day, because then I feel like it's doing something because I've taken some time in between. Right. So if I do it every day, I feel like, okay, I'm going to feel good every day. But if I do it, maybe a week or 2 or 3 weeks in between, when this is weird, when I've had stressors be able to build, then I can get in there and it's like poof, like it's gone, and or maybe not gone, but it's like easier to deal with and accept and overcome. And so I think for me, I like to feel that more so than doing it every day where, I don't feel like I have maybe the stressors, but I think having stressors is good. I think that builds some resilience and some mental toughness. And I think it's good for you anyway. I think it's just part of life. And, I think it's good to be able to know the stressors. It's good to be able to accept them and be like, I need some help. I got to talk to somebody or get an ice bath or go for a trail run or go to the gym or whatever it might be. And so I like taking a little bit of time in between if I can.
For sure.
So, yeah.
So you're kind of talking a little bit now about like the mindset stuff, right? We're kind of diving into that a little bit here. So I want to ask you, you're the director of mental performance and endurance for the Warrior Calling, where you help train candidates who want to go into special operations communities, primarily SEALs, right? So help us understand how that training program prepares candidates, because there's probably a wide range of, again, mental and physical stuff here.
Right.
So kind of tell us a little bit about that, kind of what that entails.
So the owner of the company, Joe, was a buddy of mine that I met at Buds. He was an instructor, a former team guy as well. And so we had left Buds kind of around the same time. I think I left, maybe a few months before him. And we kind of lost touch a little bit, but it was, just some texts here and there kind of thing. And so a few years goes by and he calls me up and he's like, hey man, I'm starting this company, this program to help train guys to go to Buds. I'd love for you to be a part of this company and help me out and train these guys. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Let's do it. And so basically what it is these candidates, and it's all on social media. It's all kind of word of mouth or, whatever, social media. And so guys will sign up, we'll get their height, weight, their 1 mile run times, their 3 mile run times, their bench, their squat, certain lifts. And then we take that information and then we build a program to them specifically. So every candidate that we have in the program has their own specific workouts and training program. So it's not this big cookie cutter, like, hey, everybody bench 225. Well, there might be this guy who's 135 who can't bench 100 pounds coming into the program who wants to be a SEAL. Well, that doesn't do him any good, right? So we've taken those things and been able to kind of cater it to each individual guy. And so we added the mindset thing to it because, that's obviously a piece that is overlooked a lot of times in a lot of military programs and even in life, in general. And so we implemented that, I think, really before any other programs. And I don't know how many I don't think there are many programs that have a mental performance or a mindset side to it. And so I got a certification in breathing, in tactical breathing and performance breathing from XPT. And so I've been using that along with the mindset training that certification that I received as well. And then the training that we received in the military, going through BUDS and when I was at Dev Group, we were taught different breathing techniques to be able to concentrate and focus on a mission or a job or training or, whatever it might be specifically. And so we've just taken that and I've kind of catered it a little bit to the program. And Joe's been like, hey, man, this is your thing. You develop it and figure it out and do what you feel is right and how you want to conduct it. And so, and it's just been getting bigger and better. And, I'm finding ways to make it better. And so we do a Monday mindset call every Monday or every other Monday with the guys that can make it. And so we just talk about some kind of mental toughness or resilience, or we did ice baths on Monday when I talked to them on Monday and the breathing and how to go about, starting the breathing and getting in and that sort of thing. Because guys were just jumping in and I was like, okay, time out. Like, let's do a call on that, and so, guys have been like, oh my God, thank you so much for that. That's so much easier. And, the meditation thing now carries over for a lot of guys where, maybe before a test, like a lot of guys are going to university. So before a test, I'm like, hey, before you have an exam, take 1 minute to just sit there and close your eyes and breathe for a minute before you start your exam or before you go to bed, or, when you're stressed out or somebody cuts you off on the highway is like one of my favorite ones. Instead of flipping the dude the bird, hey, you know what, maybe don't close your eyes, but maybe just take a couple of deep breaths into your nose, out through your mouth, calm yourself down, relax, and then, kind of thing. So
is there a breathing practice you typically lean on? Because one that I really love is the 4-7-8, where you take 4 inhales through your nose, and then you hold it for 7 seconds, and then you exhale through your mouth for 8 seconds for 3 breath cycles. Is there one that you lean on?
That one.
Nice.
All right. Yeah, that one specifically. That's one I teach, and I probably teach that one most often for relaxation and refocusing and concentrating and stuff. So that's my go-to for sure. That's the one.
That's the one we have implemented in our programs that we tell our our clients to use too. It's easy.
Yeah.
It's almost like a natural breath cycle kind of, I feel like. So it's not something that they feel like they have to focus on, but they can really actually, instead of focusing on how they're breathing, focusing on the feeling of the breath itself. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think the count too helps them to be able to like not have other things kind of go into their head either, other stressors or whatever. So they're constantly thinking about the count or, when to hold and how long to hold. And okay, I got to exhale now. And, thinking all that through, like, okay, it's an inhale. Okay, I got to hold. Now I got to exhale. Then it's an inhale.
Yeah.
And so I think all those things just keep your mind busy. And I think that helps.
Yep.
It's something so simple that can be used anywhere. And it's surprisingly incredibly effective. I love it.
It's for sure. Sure.
So Chris, when you're doing the director of mental performance and endurance, is that after that time of your life where you're just like looking for another door to open? Did that occur after that?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
So So I started working with Joe in the Warrior Calling in 2020, I think January of 20. And I had just moved here to Tennessee. And so I really didn't have another job. So when I came out of the Navy, being a corpsman, I found out pretty early on that none of the training I got in the military as a corpsman, the medical training I got, will carry over to civilian. So I had all this medical training that I can't do anything with. And so it was really difficult for me to find a job. And that was something I really thought I could fall back on. And I couldn't. And so, that obviously kind of led to some of that other stuff that we talked about earlier. But so I started working with him, and then that was all I was really doing. And I was still bored. I wanted to do more. And so I reluctantly went back to school at the same time. I started doing that. And
that was after kinesiology?
Yeah, that was for kinesiology. Yeah. So, I loved working out. I love, learning about body mechanics and running and all that. So I just felt like, hey, this is kind of, and it has a lot of medical background. It has a lot of, anatomy and physiology, musculoskeletal stuff, behind it. So I felt like, yeah, this should be pretty easy, if you will, to get this degree. And it's all stuff that I was already interested in, prior to. And so, I went back to school, got my degree in kinesiology and exercise science. And then I still worked with Joe in the Warrior Calling at that time. And then it was while I was in school that I had this conversation with a professor, and we just kind of started BSing one afternoon. And I think it was like a injury prevention class. And I had mentioned to him that I knew that there were some people struggling. And so I said, hey, my background's in, as a corpsman in the military, and, I worked with the Marines and so on. And so he was like, wow, that's amazing. Thank you. Let me introduce you to the sports doctor here at the school, at the university. And so I was like, okay, great. And so he introduced me to the sports doctor at school, and then the sports doctor introduced me to the baseball coach at the university as well. And the baseball coach really liked the outside the box thinking, training of, special operations. And it was something he kind of played around with, the athletes on the team. And so we kind of talked for a little while, and he was like, man, I would love for you to come out and talk to the guys about whatever you want. Teamwork, it could be leadership, it could be whatever, but just how it carries over into life, how athletics, and leadership or teamwork or whatever can carry over into all aspects. And so I did that one afternoon, and he got a lot of really good feedback and asked me to come back the next week, and then the next week, and the next week. And 3 years later, here I am still doing it. And, in that time I was like, there might be something to this. And I enjoyed kind of giving back, and I enjoyed, teaching guys what I learned, and helping them overcome, their own stressors and things. And so I was like, let me see if I can get something going and maybe start my own little mental performance business company and work with other athletes and see how it goes. And so that's kind of where all that kind of stemmed from, just deciding to go back to school. So
right. So let's get into it then. Let's talk about flow state mental performance, right? I want to hear about this. I want to hear how, the starting journey of it, where you are now, like all these things. Tell us all about it. We're very interested to hear about this.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, like I said, I started it when I was probably about a year in talking to the baseball team, and was like, let me try to get something going. And so I slowly started building a website and social media. I think I started social media first. That was easiest. And then website. And then started talking to the baseball coach and some of the baseball players, just like, hey, if you guys want some one-on-one, if you guys want me to come before games and I can talk to you guys and maybe lead you guys through some breathing, before the game starts and that kind of thing. And so it led into that. And so I was like, hey, if you guys know anybody else who might, benefit from any of this stuff that I'm teaching you guys, let me know. I mean, I'd love to help. I'm going to try to get my this business going and gain a little traction. And so they've kind of passed the word on. The coaches passed the word on, and even through the Warrior Calling, some of the guys have called me up and been like, hey, I want more mental training on the side, one-on-one outside of the Warrior Calling, with them. And so I've done that as well. And even there's a guy here locally that that hit me up and was like, hey, I'm going to go to Buds. What can you teach me? What can you show me? You know, all of these things. And so we sat down and we did a month's of work and helped him overcome these mental hurdles and obstacles and these things that were kind of holding him back. So really the mission of Flow State is to help athletes and military or special forces candidates specifically, how to overcome these mental hurdles, mental obstacles that hold them back from performing at their best or better.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
How rewarding was that? Like when you started to get the ball rolling, because there's that vision that I'm sure you had for it, but you still have to get there. You still have to, you know, work with the people to maybe sharpen that vision a little bit. But then you get a client, then you get 2, and then you get 5, and then it's like, wow, like you maybe have a moment of reflection. You go, I'm doing this thing and I'm making a difference. How rewarding was that?
Oh man, it's huge, you know, and I wish I had that, you know. I wish I had somebody to teach me like, hey, this is what you need to do. Just relax, just breathe, do this, do that. And, you know, I didn't. So it feels really, really good to see other guys want to do it and then really apply it and then be successful and see their success and then, you know, see the light bulbs and then be like, oh, yeah, that aha moment, you know, and you can kind of see it in a lot of them. Where it's like, you know, now they're telling guys, hey guys, just breathe. You know, if you breathe, it's going to help and it works and you'll recover faster and, you know, all these other things. And so it's like, yes, it's working. They're listening, you know, kind of thing. And
right.
You know, and they're young adults. They're, you know, 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old guys who, you know, as you know, we all think we know everything when we're that age. And so it's good to see them listening. It's good to see them applying the things that I'm teaching them. And even if it's just one guy, you know, that one guy is going to say, hey man, why don't you breathe? Like, Chris is teaching us this stuff. Why don't you just do it?
Yeah.
You're going to overcome this. It's going to get easier. It's going to get better. It's, you know, you're going to recover quicker and so on. And so then that guy's like, all right, fine. And, you know, so I have to kind of warn them though, you know, sometimes it's a little woo-woo for some guys and they're like, oh, this is like yoga stuff. And, you know, some guys are like, oh, that's yoga hippies and, you know, whatever it is.
Got to keep an open mind. Yeah.
But like, and I'm sure you know this, man, at the same time though, like you can't take that personal either though. If someone has that opinion, it's like, that's totally fine. That's how you feel. That's great. You know what I mean? If you change your mind, I'm here, you know, so that's the mentality you got to have with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? And they don't know what they're missing until they apply it. Right. And so it's like, it can be easier. You just
say
the word. You know, if you don't, then that's cool too, you know, to each his own. And, you know, again, like you said, hey, I'm here. If you want some more, you know, talk about it some more and, you know, dive in and break it down. So
exactly.
Yeah.
You know, what's really cool, man, is I can see your passion, and I'm sure the listeners can also hear it in your voice because you found your purpose. You know, so through that dark, you were able to find meaning to life, which is really cool. If you had a piece of advice for someone who's struggling in life, what would you say to them?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say swallow your pride and ask for help.
I love that.
And that's been a hard one for me, and I think it's been a hard one for a lot of the guys that I've deployed with who've, you know, come back and have struggled with things. And so you know, none of us want to ask for help. We all want to be able to like kind of deal with things on our own and figure it out. And, you know, again, that's how I got that, you know, my DUI was like, I thought I could handle it on my own. I thought I could do it on my own. And, you know, I turned to alcohol to be able to figure it out. And obviously it didn't. And, you know, that was a learning, you know, it was a great learning experience. And, you know, but again, because of it, I'm here now, you know, and if I would have retired, you know, 3 or 4 years later, would I be here? Would I have this? Would we be having this conversation kind of thing? So I would say swallow your pride, man. Swallow your pride and ask for help, whether it's a family member, whether it's a friend, you know, someone that you trust and you know, they'll listen to you. They'll really listen and kind of help figure it out and lead you in the right direction.
Yeah. And we talked about it before, and BG, I know you'll agree here. Through the conversations we've had with countless people now, whether it's on this podcast or when the microphones are off. People don't realize how much the people around you genuinely want to help.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they want to be part of the solution, and you'll never see that until you ask for help or ask questions.
Right.
And because we often trick ourselves to thinking we're being a burden, when in reality, you have no idea the support system that's waiting for you. So
Yes.
I love that advice, man. It is so spot on accurate. Anyone out there listening, take that advice, write it down, and apply it, because it is so good.
Yeah. Thanks.
Man.
Yeah. And we're very fortunate to have this platform because we get to speak to people like you, have a great conversation where you're openly talking about your life's journey, right?
Mm-hmm.
The ups and the downs. And you have found meaning and light. And, we just want to acknowledge you for all the work that you do, improving people's lives, being that light. So we want to acknowledge that. And where can everybody follow you?
Yeah, I appreciate it. So I've got, so my main, I guess, way to find me is through social media, Instagram, and that's flow_state_MP. So Flow State Mental Performance, flow_state_MP. And that's the one I'm most active on. Website is flowstatementalperformance.com. And those two are probably the best ways to check me out and find me.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, listen, man, you do great work. We're happy to now kind of have you on our side here and use you as a sounding board for ideas, and we hope you do the same with us. We're happy to have you as a new friend and partner in this whole thing that we're all just trying to get better. So, congrats all your success here and future success, and thanks so much for coming on and joining us today, man.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
You got it.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah.
All right.